Thank you, and I apologize. I apologize up front because there may be some technical difficulty as we go through the presentation. As Dave said, I'm from PayPal, and being at PayPal does give me, I think, a fairly unique perspective into commerce and payments. I see, because of my role, I'm actually the Director of Product Management for Digital Goods at PayPal. I see not only the digital side of the world and what's happening there, but also what's happening on the physical retail side of the world. And there's a ton that's going on there right now, specifically having to do with multi-channel. And so what I wanted to do in this presentation was take you through some of what we're seeing in terms of the trends and learnings from the physical retail world, and then talk a little bit about how that applies to the digital world. So let's start out by talking about what multi-channel or a channel actually is in the physical retail world. It starts out with brick and mortar, right? This is the store that you actually walk into, ranges to e-commerce. And then, most recently, it's really been about mobile. And it's mobile, I think, that's really changing the face of shopping and commerce today, and frankly, changing the way we do a lot of things in our lives. The other trend that we're seeing in multi-channel for physical retail is this idea that lines are blurring. So yesterday it was online and offline, and these were very separate, very siloed areas. Today we're seeing the rise of web-influenced offline, which is essentially where you may do your product research or your pricing comparisons online, but then you actually complete your transaction offline. So you go into a brick and mortar store and actually purchase the item. And we expect that tomorrow this is all just going to be one big bucket blurred together. In an environment like this, what do you think about in order to make commerce and payments successful? You think about creating a seamless experience, making sure that you have the right experience for the right channel, and then maybe most importantly, you think about how this new channel can actually create a new experience that a consumer may actually like better and appreciate more. So I think seamless experience is probably the easiest thing to explain. For those of you, this is actually, I'll make the comment, this is actually an older audience. I think most of us were probably around when e-commerce first started. And you remember that when you bought something in a store, you had to return it in a store. And when you bought something online, you had to return it online. And these were very siloed, and the two channels just never met. That's obviously changed. Today, you can seamlessly move between these channels so that if you buy something in the store, well, I should say if you can't find it in the store, the salesperson will automatically look online for you, get the thing ordered for you, and have it shipped to your house. And if you buy something online and find that it doesn't fit, you can return it in the store and avoid the shipping costs. Finding the right experience for the right channel is really about understanding the different strengths and weaknesses of a particular channel. So let's take payments as an example. Payments really has to be in every single channel. So PayPal has been busy moving from the web, which is kind of where our roots were, to mobile. And now we're actually moving into point of sale. So we've signed a number of deals with retailers so that will actually be available at the point of sale. The PayPal experience is not going to look and does not look the same in each of these different channels, and it can't. And one of the simple reasons for that is just the input mechanism. So on the web, we had a keyboard that allowed letters and special characters and numbers, and so you could use email address and a regular password as your credential. Well, when we start moving to mobile, a lot of the smartphones obviously have that keyboard as well, but it's not quite as easy to use, and when you move into feature phones, you've only got a number keyboard. And so on mobile, we actually encourage you to use your phone number and PIN as a way to authenticate into PayPal. And then on POS systems, most stores I think nowadays actually have a number keypad, but you've actually got the addition of a swipe card. And so as PayPal has moved into this space, we've also introduced a swipe card so that you can use PayPal at a regular point of sale system as well. But I always think that the most exciting pieces are how new channels and new technologies can really enable new experiences. I don't know how many of you follow PayPal News, but we recently announced the launch of a product called PayPal Here Check-in. PayPal Here Check-in basically allows a consumer to announce to a merchant before they walk into the store that they're coming in. And then they can actually pay with PayPal there. And I will let merchants. Then this is a merchant, a fashion merchant in Berkeley called Sway, and I'll let them tell you a little bit about the product themselves.
Head to the stores, which is great because we can say, oh. We are really excited about having PayPal because our customers can check in on their phones before they head to the stores, which is great because we can say, oh, Sally's coming. For us, the best feature is being able to see their past transactions and say, oh my God, how did that dress work out for you? How was that skirt for you? What's great about the PayPal checkout is that the photo pops up. We don't have any questions about who's using it. We don't have any issues with fraudulent transactions. When they're done with the checkout, a receipt gets emailed to them. That way it's paperless, and if there were any issues, it's going to be a lot easier for us to pull their information up and verify all of the transactions they had.
So this was the technical difficulty. There is actually video that goes along with that, which we apparently can't get to play. So I don't know if you registered some of what this particular merchant was saying, but the reason that I love this particular clip is not just that you can pay with PayPal in the store. So this PayPal check-in also allows you to pay within the store using your PayPal account. But what she talks about is the fact that she's able to look up the customer's past purchases and then use that to talk to the customer about what they might want to purchase in the future. And what they might want to purchase as they're walking in the store today. And that kind of personalized, customized service is something that I think just wasn't really possible before.
We are really excited about having PayPal.
Okay. So these are the things that we're seeing in the physical retail world. And I'm sure we're all looking at that and saying, that's great. There's some cool things that you can do combining up the physical world and brick and mortar with what's going on with mobile. But how does that really apply to the digital world? And I think it's actually quite similar, except for the fact that the definition of a channel is different. So let's think about what the definition of channel is. So I think most of us would think of, in the digital world, a channel as being a platform. So that would range from any of the mobile platforms, iOS, Android, et cetera, to tablets, to desktops, to PCs, to consoles, and maybe even to television one day. And this platform picture, this channel picture, is complicated by the fact that for any platform there may be multiple devices, and this is kind of a map of what the Android device system looks like, as well as multiple ways to distribute your application. Obviously, Apple and Android marketplaces are the largest today, but as visibility on those marketplaces becomes more difficult to come by, I expect that some of the other marketplaces will also come into play. So the question in that complex a system with that many channels is, how do you really create a seamless experience across those channels? It's obviously not an easy thing with all of those variations to deal with. And so what we were hearing, I would say, about a year ago from developers, it was all about HTML5, and HTML5 being the way to create, one experience, code once, be on all platforms. What we're hearing from developers today is maybe the HTML5 isn't quite ready. In the news recently, Wooga announced that they were stopping all development on their HTML5 games, and they cited the reasons as discoverability, connectivity, and performance. I think that over time, these issues will actually be resolved, whether through innovation, through new technology, through new standards, but it probably will take some time. And so what I wanted to do was actually share with you one of the examples that we've seen with HTML5 kind of going across platforms in another digital world. So this is publishing. Many of you are probably familiar with the Financial Times. It's a business publication based in the UK. And they started out with the classic kind of native app strategy. They had an iPad application for the Financial Times. And then because of disputes with Apple over customer data and subscription billing, they started building out their own HTML5 app. And that HTML5 app became successful enough that they had 2 million users on it, and eventually got to the point where they actually killed their iOS app. And the goal of this is not to say, hey, let's get to a point where we can kill the iOS app. It's simply to say that HTML5, I think, can be successful, even if we're not necessarily seeing it successful right now in the gaming industry. I think finding the right experience for the right channel is the same kind of story as we have for physical retail. So it's about understanding the strengths and weaknesses of the particular platforms. Putting screen size on one side and portability on the other, this is just kind of one way to cut the picture. You kind of see all the different platforms arrayed across this graph. But the fact of the matter is screen size and portability is really one thing to think about. Consoles obviously also have a controller that means that you can have different kinds of interactions. Facebook has a social overlay that you have to consider. And then tablets and smartphones have location, gyroscopes, cameras, and a touch interface that also make it different to work with. And if consumers were actually just participating in one of these platforms, so the only thing they ever had was a console, or the only thing that they ever had was an iPhone, you would have to think about creating that same experience across each of the platforms. But the fact of the matter is, consumers aren't living in just one of these platforms. They're using all of the platforms. Here we have a graph of when iPhone users use the iPhone. It's a very spiky usage across time. You look at the desktop, and the desktop is, apparently we're all using it at work and then after we come home from work after dinner. And the iPad is extremely interesting, as I think it's about using it right when you wake up and then kind of right before you go to sleep. And all of that tells us that different people are using different platforms at different times, and that changes the way that you might want to build a game or application against it. One of the companies that's taking advantage of this is Activision. So Activision, using both World of Warcraft and Call of Duty as an example, both of these games are very, very graphic intensive, very immersive experiences that would be incredibly difficult to port over to a smartphone, at least given where smartphone technology is today. And what that means is that with just a console game or a PC game, Activision would only have a connection with their players when they're at home. What they've done, though, is they've created a companion app that allows the player to keep track of stats, what's happening in the game, actually purchase items, outfit their characters, that sort of a thing, on their smartphone. And what that means is that when a player is out there waiting in line at a restaurant, they can actually continue to interact with the game, and that allows Activision to continue to have a relationship with the player even when they're not at home. If we expand the idea of multi-channel even further, so moving away from the idea of a platform as a channel and expand beyond the platform as a channel, I think there are actually a lot of new experiences that can be created as well. Parallel Mafia is a game, think of it as a mafia game, but it has a location overlay on top of it. So the teams that you play with or against are based on where you are physically located, and you're playing with or against people who are in your physical vicinity. And so if you move locations, you actually change the nature of your game because you're playing with different players or you're playing against different players. Another example that I also think about when thinking about how you can expand this definition of channel is thinking about other forms of media. And this is something that Tryon has done. This is something that Tryon has done or is planning to do with the Sci-Fi Channel. So they're about to release a game, MMO called Defiance, in partnership with Sci-Fi. And I'll let the creators talk about it a little bit themselves. This one worked.
Defiance is a science fiction drama set 35 years in the future.
An alien civilization has shown up at Earth's doorstep.
The ships that they brought with all their plants and animals and species crash down on Earth and create a new terraformed planet.
The world around us has changed, and aliens and human beings are living side by side.
This is a story that's about courage, it's about survival, and it's about the new frontier. Defiance is actually two things.
One is a serialized drama for television, and the other is a massive multiplayer online game.
Both properties are tied together and work as one.
The game of Defiance takes place in San Francisco.
And the TV show takes place in St. Louis, but it's a shared universe.
The events of that virtual world will actually affect the story and the world of our show, and vice versa.
There's never been a time when a television network and a video game company have come together from the start to create something like this.
It's never been attempted before. It is truly at the forefront of immersive storytelling experiences. It's the holy grail of entertainment.
To bring this back to the question of payments, if you are actually thinking about multi-channel and how you do that either in the physical retail world or in the digital world, I'll say that it's obviously going to be more complex than just working in a single channel. If you're just building a game and having to monetize it in a single channel, you just have to worry about that one channel, what its properties are, how consumers use that one channel, and you build all of your commerce and monetization around that. When you start expanding to multiple channels, you obviously have to think about how do you offer the appropriate payment method no matter what platform or context you're on. So the obvious example, if you're on iOS, you have to use iOS payment systems. If you are on a web PC, you have a lot more choices in terms of what you can offer. As another example, if you are on mobile, for example, you probably want to offer carrier payments of some kind, right? And so one of the things that PayPal has done in this space is we recently acquired Zong, which provides carrier payments and potentially provides a more appropriate payment method for the mobile world. The second thing you have to think about is how you create an optimized user experience across the platforms. When you're on a smartphone, you have a very small footprint. What kinds of options are you going to show to actually optimize having a consumer, choose the right option for themselves? With the PC, you have a huge screen. You could put tons of different options on there. So you could put every option up there, one for each consumer. That's probably still not the best way to monetize, but you have a lot more room to experiment with. And so figuring out how you optimize your payment display on each of these different platforms is going to be key to getting the right or the best monetization on each of the individual platforms. And then the third piece I think about is really tracking the users and user behavior as one. And what I mean by that is a consumer's identity or a player's identity on a mobile game, you want that same identity on the PC so that you can look at what they're doing on mobile and look at what they're doing on PC and take all of that data to create the best experience for them going forward. This is one of the reasons that PayPal structures itself as a digital wallet in the cloud. That allows us to keep all of the data in one place, and then you can customize the experience across each of the separate platforms and each of the different platforms as needed to ensure that you get the best optimization across those platforms. I think there's a ton that's going on in multi-channel in the physical retail world. I think we're definitely seeing that as well in the gaming world, and I really can't wait to see what emerges next.
Thank you very much. We have a few minutes for questions. Questions from the audience for Mary? Looks like everybody's got it wired, right? You know exactly
Excellent. They know exactly what they need to do.
Awesome. All right. Well, then, thank you very much for your time. And we'll move on to the next presentation in a few minutes.